NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand.
What if I told you that behind closed doors, a deal is being crafted that could redraw the map of the Western world? A top NATO official has just broken silence on a stunning private meeting with President Donald Trump, revealing explosive details about a secret framework that could bring Greenland, the world's largest island, closer to American control than ever before. This is not speculation. This is not rumor. This is happening right now, and the implications could reshape global power for generations to come. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about Arctic geopolitics. Good evening, and welcome to our in-depth coverage of one of the most significant diplomatic developments in recent weeks. A senior NATO official has come forward with remarkable details about a high-level meeting with President Donald Trump that reportedly laid the groundwork for what is being described as a framework regarding Greenland. This development marks a dramatic shift in the ongoing saga surrounding American interest in the strategically vital Arctic territory. Tonight, we'll break down what we know, what this could mean for transatlantic relations, and the broader implications for Arctic geopolitics. To understand the significance of these revelations, we need to revisit the history of American interest in Greenland. President Trump first publicly floated the idea of the United States purchasing Greenland during his first term in 2019, a proposal that was immediately dismissed by Danish officials as absurd. Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark, is the world's largest island and home to approximately 56,000 people, most of whom are indigenous Inuit. The territory has been part of the Danish realm since the 18th century, though it gained home rule in 1979 and expanded self-governance in 2009. The island's strategic importance cannot be overstated. Sitting at the crossroads between North America and Europe, Greenland offers unparalleled access to Arctic shipping routes, which are becoming increasingly navigable due to climate change. The territory is also home to Thule Air Base, America's northernmost military installation, which houses critical early warning radar systems and serves as a key component of U.S. missile defense architecture. Beyond military considerations, Greenland possesses vast untapped reserves of rare earth minerals, oil, gas, and other natural resources. These resources have become increasingly valuable as global supply chains shift and nations seek to reduce dependence on Chinese-controlled mineral supplies. The strategic calculus is simple: whoever controls Greenland controls the Arctic, and whoever controls the Arctic will have a decisive advantage in the great power competition of the 21st century. According to the NATO official who spoke about the encounter, the meeting with President Trump was described as intense but productive. The official characterized the discussion as unlike typical diplomatic exchanges, noting that Trump approached the Greenland issue with what was described as a business-oriented mindset. The framework that reportedly emerged from these discussions appears to represent a more nuanced approach than the outright purchase proposal that sparked controversy years ago. Rather than a direct territorial acquisition, sources suggest the discussions centered on enhanced security cooperation, economic development partnerships, and expanded American investment in Greenland's infrastructure and resource sectors. The NATO official reportedly emphasized that any arrangement would need to respect Greenlandic self-determination and sovereignty while addressing legitimate American security concerns in the Arctic region. This represents a potential middle ground that could prove more palatable to Danish and Greenlandic authorities than previous proposals. Key elements of the reported framework include discussions about expanded military cooperation beyond the existing Thule Air Base agreement, potential American investment in Greenland's mining sector, enhanced search and rescue capabilities in Arctic waters, and infrastructure development including ports, airports, and communications networks. Sources indicate that Trump was particularly focused on the economic dimensions of any agreement. The president reportedly emphasized that American investment could transform Greenland's economy, creating jobs and opportunities while reducing the territory's dependence on Danish subsidies. The NATO official described Trump's negotiating style as direct and transactional, focused on concrete outcomes rather than diplomatic niceties. This approach, while unconventional, reportedly made progress on issues that had stalled in traditional diplomatic channels. The involvement of NATO officials in these discussions adds a multilateral dimension to what has previously been characterized as a bilateral issue between the United States and Denmark. This approach acknowledges that Arctic security is increasingly a collective concern for the alliance. Russian military activity in the Arctic has expanded significantly in recent years, with Moscow reopening Soviet-era bases and increasing submarine patrols beneath polar ice. China, too, has declared itself a near-Arctic state and has shown growing interest in the region's resources and shipping routes. These developments have pushed Arctic security higher on NATO's agenda. The alliance's 2022 strategic concept explicitly acknowledged the Arctic as an area of strategic competition, and subsequent summit declarations have emphasized the need for enhanced presence and capabilities in the high north. For NATO, a framework that increases American commitment to Greenlandese security while maintaining Danish sovereignty could represent an optimal outcome. It would bolster the alliance's Arctic posture without the diplomatic rupture that would result from a territorial transfer. The official reportedly described the discussions as reflecting a recognition that 21st century security challenges require creative solutions that go beyond traditional concepts of sovereignty and territorial control. Enhanced access agreements, joint development zones, and integrated command structures were mentioned as potential models. Alliance members have been briefed on the general outlines of the discussions, though specific details remain closely held. European allies have expressed cautious optimism that a constructive framework could emerge, though some have voiced concerns about being sidelined in discussions affecting regional security. Any framework regarding Greenland must ultimately receive approval from both Copenhagen and Nuuk, Greenland's capital. The Danish government has historically been protective of its relationship with Greenland, and Greenlandic officials have consistently emphasized their desire for self-determination. Greenland's path toward potential independence has been a subject of ongoing discussion on the island. A 2009 self-governance agreement opened the door to eventual independence should Greenlanders choose that path through a referendum. However, the territory remains heavily dependent on an annual block grant from Denmark, which covers roughly half of public spending. American investment and economic development could potentially accelerate Greenland's path toward economic self-sufficiency, making independence a more realistic prospect. This dynamic introduces complex considerations into any framework discussions. Some Greenlandic politicians have expressed openness to closer ties with the United States, viewing American investment as a potential counterweight to Danish influence and a path toward greater autonomy. Others remain skeptical, concerned about the environmental implications of resource extraction and the potential loss of Greenlandic identity. The indigenous Inuit population has expressed particular concern about any arrangements made without their meaningful participation. Indigenous rights groups have emphasized that the Greenlandic people must be central to any discussions about the territory's future, not merely consulted as an afterthought. Recent polling in Greenland suggests a divided population. While many residents welcome economic development and closer ties with the United States, there is significant concern about the pace of change and the preservation of Greenlandic culture and traditions. Danish officials have maintained a cautious public stance, neither embracing nor rejecting the reported framework outright. Copenhagen faces a delicate balancing act between maintaining alliance solidarity with the United States and respecting Greenlandic autonomy. The geopolitical implications of enhanced American presence in Greenland extend far beyond the North Atlantic. Arctic melting is opening new maritime routes that could reshape global trade patterns. The Northern Sea route along Russia's east coast and the Northwest Passage through Canadian waters offer dramatically shorter shipping times between Asia, Europe, and North America. Control of Greenland provides strategic positioning relative to these emerging routes. It also offers capabilities for monitoring submarine activity, which is increasingly important as both Russia and China expand their undersea fleets. From a resource perspective, Greenland's mineral wealth includes rare earth elements essential for modern electronics, electric vehicles, and renewable energy systems. Reducing Western dependence on Chinese rare earth supplies has become a strategic priority, and Greenlandic deposits could contribute to supply chain diversification. Climate change also makes Greenland increasingly significant for scientific research. The island's ice sheet contains records of Earth's climate history, and its melting patterns provide critical data for understanding global climate dynamics. Enhanced cooperation could expand scientific collaboration and environmental monitoring. Military strategists have long recognized Greenland's importance for continental defense. The island provides early warning capabilities against missile threats from the north and serves as a potential staging ground for operations across the Arctic. Any enhanced American presence would strengthen these capabilities significantly. The economic implications are equally profound. Greenland's fishing industry, already a major Economic driver could benefit from improved infrastructure and access to American markets. Tourism, too, could expand with enhanced transportation links. News of the NATO officials' revelations has generated varied reactions across the international community. European allies have expressed a mixture of concern and cautious interest, with some viewing enhanced American Arctic engagement as beneficial for collective security, while others worry about precedents for unilateral action. Russia has predictably objected to any expansion of American or NATO presence near its northern borders. Russian officials have characterized the discussions as evidence of American expansionism and have warned of potential responses, including enhanced military deployment in the Russian Arctic. Moscow views the Arctic as vital to its national security and economic interests. China, which has significant investments in Greenlandic mining projects, has remained publicly measured in its response. However, analysts suggest Beijing is closely monitoring developments. Concerned about potential exclusion from Arctic resources and routes, Chinese state media has questioned American motives while emphasizing the importance of international cooperation in the Arctic. Canada, which shares Arctic sovereignty concerns and indigenous rights considerations with Denmark and Greenland, has watched developments with particular interest. Canadian officials have emphasized the importance of respecting international law and existing governance frameworks in the Arctic. Nordic countries have expressed solidarity with Denmark while acknowledging the legitimate security concerns driving American interest. Finland and Sweden, as newer NATO members, have particular interest in Arctic security arrangements. Looking ahead, several factors will determine whether the reported framework develops into concrete agreements. Danish elections and the political dynamics in Copenhagen will influence governmental willingness to engage substantively with American proposals. Similarly, political developments in Greenland itself will shape the territory's openness to enhanced American engagement. The Trump administration's approach to negotiations will also prove decisive. The NATO official reportedly emphasized that productive outcomes require respect for existing relationships and recognition that Greenland is not simply a territory to be acquired but a homeland with its own identity, aspirations, and rights. Economic factors will play a significant role as well. Greenland's heavy dependence on Danish subsidies creates both leverage and complexity. American willingness to provide alternative economic support could facilitate closer ties, but would also raise questions about long-term commitments and conditions. Environmental considerations increasingly influence Arctic policy discussions. Any framework for enhanced resource development in Greenland would need to address climate concerns and environmental protection, particularly given the sensitivity of Arctic ecosystems. The revelations from this NATO official represent a potentially historic development in Arctic geopolitics, while many questions remain unanswered and substantial obstacles exist. The reported framework suggests a more sophisticated approach to American interests in Greenland than previous proposals. Whether this development leads to meaningful agreements or becomes another chapter in the long history of great power interest in the Arctic remains to be seen. What is certain is that Greenland's strategic importance will only grow in the coming decades. Ensuring that these discussions will continue regardless of immediate outcomes, the stakes could not be higher. The Arctic is warming faster than anywhere else on Earth, and the race to control its resources and routes is accelerating. The decisions made in the coming months and years will shape the geopolitical landscape for generations. We will continue to monitor this developing story and bring you updates as more information becomes available. Thank you for joining us for this analysis.